And joining us in studio for more now is former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Thank you for joining us on this day. I think it's appropriate to start on such an occasion with your personal impressions of a man who could be described at sometimes as a partner, at sometimes as an adversary.
I'm very sad at the death of Saeb Erekat. He was a man of peace. He was anxious to resolve the conflict, the historical conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, with a peace agreement. We were very close to achieve peace in 2008 when I negotiated on behalf of Israel and Mahmoud Abbas, and Saeb Erekat negotiated on behalf of the Palestinians. Again, I said, he was a man of peace, he was a man of honor, he was anti-terror. It was not easy to negotiate with him because he represented the Palestinian side. Sometimes Israelis are a little bit disappointed when they find that the other side does not accept automatically our point of view, but rather represent their point of view. So Saeb Erekat never hesitated to represent the Palestinian cause according to his perception and his principles and his emotions. But he did it with respect and honor, which deserves our respect throughout the process. I think that he was a person that you could deal with, and I could deal with him. We kept good relations since we started negotiations, actually before, but since then and throughout until the very last weeks, we were in contact. We met several times. We met last time just before the COVID-19 pandemic started in New York together with the Palestinian leader, Dr. Mahmoud Abbas. And since then, we were corresponding quite a lot. So it's really sad, and I take this opportunity to express my condolences to his wife, Naima, and to his family, to the President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian people, for the loss of a man who was a great and honorable representative of their cause.
How do you respond, though, to those people who, even today, criticize him as as epitomizing let's say, a maximalist approach to peace negotiations with Israel, epitomizing a generation of Palestinians that, as the expression goes, the Israeli expression, never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity, especially in the negotiations with your government?
Well, I'm familiar with some Israelis who never missed an opportunity to even not only miss an opportunity, but to ignore the opportunities. So, we can share these compliments with each other easily.
And yet, but he failed to reach an agreement with your government, which many people felt was the time that he should have been able to reach that deal.
You forget that he was not the president of the Palestinian Authority. Good or bad, right or wrong, the person who was supposed to take the decision at that time was Mahmoud Abbas, a man whom I respect a lot, but he failed to do it. He didn't say no. He never said no, but he never said yes. And Saeb Erekat was not the man at the top. But contrary to what some people, Israeli people say, or adversaries, he was a Palestinian, a proud Palestinian. He represented the Palestinians' demands and the Palestinian desires in the most, according to my experience, in a much more moderate manner than many others. And I can say, quoting from one of the tens of meetings that we had through negotiations, that he said, we agree to have a Palestinian state which will be non-militarized, will not have an army. The only thing that we want is law enforcing agencies to make sure that we don't have amongst us, criminals and whatnot. But he agreed to have a non-militarized Palestinian state. And the question, of course, was what exactly the borders will be, how they, what will be the status of the Arab side of Jerusalem, and so on and so forth. So there were quite a few issues. On most of them, we agreed. We were so close to making an agreement that Abu Mazen himself said several times publicly that had I stayed 3 more months as a Prime Minister of Israel, we would have signed an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. And Saeb Erekat was a central part in this effort. So I'm not here to share with these obnoxious comments by some extreme right-wing Israelis that for them every Palestinian is a terrorist. Saeb Erekat was not a terrorist. He was a decent, fair, good and honorable representative of his people with whom we disagreed many times, but he was a partner for negotiations.
Now, we have to note that he passed away in a week, then perhaps for the first time, some might say in 4 years, that the possibility of renewed negotiations or talks or even contacts between Israel and the Palestinian Authority and the U.S. are a possibility. How optimistic are you about that, given what has transpired in Washington and could transpire over the next several months and years?
Quite frankly, between you and me, why do we need that something will change in America for us to want to negotiate with the Palestinians in the first place? Really, I mean, that's...
Well, maybe it's something has to change for the Palestinians, Mr. Olmert, not for the Israel side.
Israel, look, I do not represent the Palestinians, and I'm not going to advocate them or to argue for their cause. I can't. I represent only the point of view of what I think is the majority of the Israelis thinking. And this is that the government of Israel in the last 11 years has no desire to seriously negotiate with the Palestinians in order to achieve peace on a basis which is reasonable and which is within the framework of what has been the consensus until I retired and Netanyahu became the Prime Minister. The question now is, knowing what the basic attitudes of President-elect Biden, what will he do once he becomes the president on the 20th of January. Quite frankly, I think that he has got to face some problems ahead of the Israeli-Palestinian issue, and he will deal with that. We all know that he said that he is against annexation, that he is against building in the settlements, that he is
for a two-state solution.
That he is in favor of a two-state solution. He said it in the past, and if the occasion will arise, if there will be any controversies, if there will be any actions on a unilateral basis taken by the Israeli government, I'm absolutely certain that he will spell it out in the most firm manner, as he did just a few weeks ago.
And as he did in the past, obviously.
Yes, many times, but I don't think that this will be the first priority of his government. Therefore, I don't expect to have any dramatic movements within this region in the short term. I think that the main thing which may concern some Israelis is that, unfortunately, in the last 8 years, the Israeli government under Netanyahu deviated dramatically from the tradition of the bipartisan support for Israel and the bipartisan support from Israel to the American system.
We'll have to leave that as a last word.
And that's why I'm so concerned that the more left wing of the Democratic Party will have a debate with the government of Israel.
We'll have to leave it at that. Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, thank you for joining us on I-24 News.